So today's little stream is going to be pretty much what I did last week, only in that I did not record. Well, I didn't have audio last week for an important segment. I had audio from when I was playing Silent Hill F, but whatever. So going over this again. So wanted to go over this video and a few other things, a few additional things. It's been other topics or other publications, I guess I'd say, that have talked about this same thing. And so I won't talk about it much. Everyone's already talking about this, in that the job apocalypse, that entry-level jobs are going away because of AI. The Federal Reserve chairs would say that that's not necessarily the case right now. They don't see it in the data, that AI is the reason people aren't being hired in the entry-level jobs, people being recent college grads. Other people like in the tech area are saying yes. Both of those sides do have incentive to say what they're saying. Federal Reserve has an obligation to keep unemployment low, and so they don't want it to be that it's AI making people unemployed, because then they have to do certain things more quickly. Tech people want to say it is AI because everyone on that side is incentivized to say that AI is going to not only change the world, but that it's going to be able to make good on its investments that they've gotten from different people. So it's still the case that college graduates have a lower unemployment rate than someone that that didn't go to college. But I want to talk about one bit here as people continue to talk about this. This bit is gaining traction, so I wanted to talk about this again.
Overall, the education system, both in schools and universities, is not equipping graduates and school leavers with the skills and also the critical thinking that they'll need for a future-proof career in the workplaces of tomorrow.
So if you look back sort of hundreds of years to medieval times, one of the ways in which young people learned their skills was that they would be apprenticed to a master, and actually often their middle-class families would save up their money and pay that master craftsman to take their young person on. And I have talked to some people who think that maybe that's going to be a model for the future, because if a big company can't really monetize the skills of their more junior people, rather than not hire them at all, maybe they'll be willing to take them on in exchange for some sort of fee. Or the alternative would be, a return of a kind of indentured labour, which also happened with apprenticeships, whereby, a company can say, well, look, we'll take you on and train you, even though we can't really sell your skills just yet. But in return, once you're fully trained, you're going to need to stick with us for 10 years or whatever. It's interesting to see how these sort of super modern problems are having people reaching into the history books for potential solutions.
So the solution that she just described, first of all, is fucked up, I'll say. But the solution she described already has happened. This is the case already where companies have relied on colleges to become that training ground. That's why, you can say credential inflation, or too many people went to college for useless degrees. Although it was the case that for a good chunk of time, people would go to college because any degree would get you a job. Again, the lower unemployment rate compared to somebody without a college degree, and higher wages. It even still the case that, like, if getting a degree, you have a lower unemployment rate and you will make more over your lifetime. It's still the case, but it's past performance does not equal future performance. But anyway, but that's what has happened in the past decades. A college degree was the only way to for decades now has been the only way to get into the middle class lifestyle more directly. Obviously there's some other college jobs and like plumbers and things like that, but still the overall premise is that if these companies wanted to hire somebody, it used to be the case they would hire people and train them. And so you get into a company once, be hired, you'd have a pension, you'd work for that company forever, and then you die, and then you'd have maybe a company car and all these different things, blah blah blah. But as time went on, they were again trying to suck up more and more profits, and then eventually in the 70s and 80s with Nixon and Reagan, They got handed, corporations got handed more power and more opportunities to undercut labor. And so that training's, instead of having to be within the company, it started to be pushed into colleges. So colleges became the training grounds. And so not only that, but the education that you have there, and I'm not going to get into this too much in detail, but the education that you have in college, all the professors and consultants and whatnot, they're beholden to these companies, either for, having a seat on the board, or, getting funded for their research. They'd have to, spout certain things that these companies want. They have to train certain people or teach them a certain theory of mind in order to go to those companies. So all that to say is that there's been already the general premise of you're paying to train yourself. You're already paying to train yourself for what the companies are saying you need to learn to work at their companies in their mindset. There's some, wiggle room still of invention, and then you have to think outside the box very hard and work and make connections and work with people to do so. But it's the curriculum will still be very much whatever, capitalism is saying. And so that has already happened. And what they're saying now is that it's going to become more direct in that to get hired and get the skills, not only do you have to, go to, public education, which should be, you should have public education, and then pay to go to college, but college should be free. So there's that too. But they're saying that you have to pay them to work for them to get the skills to work for them. So, and this isn't the only little thing that's being said here. There was also, which I had missed from last week, but I'm glad I had to do this video again. One of the podcasts I listened to, one of the people, Kara Swisher, people say things about her, whatever. In one of her more recent episodes from 5 days ago, where's my tab? How AI will impact the future of work. She talks with futurist Martin Ford. Don't know who that is. What the hell does futurist mean? Then economist Betsy Stevenson. And Betsy said one thing, or she said the same thing that was just said in this video. And so I'll just play this for a bit and I can comment some more.
They need so that they can be an experienced lawyer. And it may be that we need to have more training programs, that what you're actually going into is a new type of internship where, you're really just learning and you're getting a stipend that maybe you pay back out of future earnings, or maybe the government sponsors these stipends. Think about what we do with medical residents. You go in as an intern in the hospital. You're not that productive. In fact, you're subtracting because the attending is teaching you. And so we get government sponsoring those kinds of first positions for medical students in medical settings. And we may need that for lawyers, for all sorts of white collar jobs where it's just really hard to be super productive when you're young. Now, the thing that fights that is the faster technology changes. I can tell you the young people are better with it. They pick up very quickly. They move very quickly. But I think we do need to worry about generational gaps, because I think that AI is going to make it very easy for sort of that Gen X, very young boomers to hang on for quite some time, being very productive and using the experience they have.
Yeah, because they don't need those associates. Say if it was a law firm, they don't need what they're doing, which is mostly easily replicated by AI, for example.
So the first thing I want to say again is that when we're talking AI, it's a very broadly used or poorly used term. The current AI they talk about are large language models, which are all neural networks, which are just text predictors. They still don't know anything. It's partially why you ask it a question, it'll try to answer you and please you. That is partly to do with the way the model was trained or massaged to make it a user-friendly experience than what we currently have. But again, it's never going to say that I don't know, because it doesn't know what knowing is. It doesn't have a mind. It doesn't think. It's predicting text. People will argue, is like, well, isn't that what you're thinking right now? When you're saying, like I just did, you're thinking of making the proper selection of the next word to say. So how is it any different? And I'll say, well, okay, then if you think so lowly of people, then I can't argue with you if you think people are such worthless and are just computers or machines or whatever for you to exploit. So I can't argue with you. You don't know what a human is to begin with. So putting that aside, again, the thing that even this economist is saying is to have indentured servitude, I guess, or you're gonna pay a company and then work for them for a long time and then have to pay back with earnings later on. One thing that this is partly done as well is for I know a lot of coding boot camps did this, where you could either, you could pay up front, you get a loan or whatever, or you can pay with your future earnings, like a certain amount. They made whatever lofty promises. Even though that fell through, I know that Climb Credit, they did have Climb Credit, CFPB, Climb Credit, which did a lot of these loans to these coding boot camps. The CFPB was taking action. I don't know if it's still ongoing, obviously, with the fucked up current regime, current autocratic authoritarian regime that's in office. Don't know if this is still going on, but they were deceiving borrowers about coding boot camps and vocational programs. And so this was an example of that, since the partial, I guess, kind of shortly lived social contract of get a degree no matter what, and you'll have a better job. That was a bit falling through. And then you have, tech sprinting up, obviously before 2008 with Microsoft and whatnot, but and Google. Then other more, I don't know, less nerdy looking companies like Facebook, like trying to make tech look cool or whatever. Boot camps obviously surged because of the high wages and whatnot. And so the degree wasn't enough. So people were like, well, I don't want to go to college for another 4 years again. Is there a shortcut way I can learn a bit of skills and to get my foot in the door and do whatever? And so this was, again, this boot camp thing was another little, it wasn't as bad, but it's another little roadblock, I guess you'd call it, of you paying to train yourself to work for this company. So you, it's still a little bit before that because you're not necessarily doing work for companies. Even though in some interviews they could have like a 1 week project or something that they need done. They're like, well, I don't want to do it myself. Let's just hold an interview process, have somebody do that work, then take it and move on and never hire the person. So there's some of that, but that's way out here, anecdotal. But again, this little thing, which you've seen from this, and I'm sure there's others that we haven't seen yet, that those boot camps were also, weren't as cracked up as they should have been or were purported to be. But it was still just another example of trying to get you to pay to train yourself more and more to work for these companies instead of companies hiring you on and training you. And then, you're working for that company. They'll pay you and train you, and you're going to work for the company. It's just another spot for them to, take profits. We already have shitty healthcare, which should be free. So they're already taking profits in that. You already work too many hours. Wage theft is still the largest form of theft in the country. I don't care what anybody says about any sort of thievery. The largest form of theft is wage theft from employers by far for decades. So, again, just another thing that they're trying to take from you, and just trying to take more money from you, take more time from you by making you pay to get to supposedly get some skills, and then maybe years later you'll start to actually make money to have a life. So that's insane. I think there was one other little tidbit I had about this, but I didn't want to look through the old video to talk about it again. So I wonder, maybe I could find it. Probably not quickly enough, but this is the thing I'm worried about is people starting to accept or, starting to get richer families, or not even necessarily that rich families, because if you're rich enough, then you to support somebody while they're learning or training, then maybe you don't care as much. Like someone rich, it's already the case that rich families have been able to allow their kids to take internships and things that they want to do or whatever to get their foot in the door for later on, like internships for politicians, right? Like if someone can do a very poorly paid staffer position or something, or intern for a politician, but then they're just meeting a bunch of people, and then they get other consulting jobs or whatever. There's that aspect. There's other like, nonprofits that, there's obviously a lot of good people that are working in nonprofits, but then a lot of people that can only even get involved in those are people that have some sort of, safety net from a richer family. And so I'm not really sure that there'd be a case of like, only rich families get, only kids from these richer families get these jobs, that they're going to start to make you pay to get the job. It would be interesting to see more about that. I guess I had to think more on that. Because if you're that rich that you can, I guess not even necessarily that rich. It's like if you're a upper middle income family, and you can fully support, your child after college or after graduating college to like live somewhere like New York and pay, I don't know, JP Morgan to work there for a year or two. Like you pretty much pay your kid the salary for a couple of years while they work for JP Morgan for free, and then they actually start paying them. I don't know. You could have done that for any job or already doing that prior to this or something. So, but it's just like besides that, it's just another, pulling the ladder up behind you, method by making you pay to get any sort of skill to get a job, as you already do with college. So I'll move on from there. I wanted to talk about that. I had a much better version last week, but I didn't want to look up everything again. So one other thing I wanted to look at, let's see. I wanted to look at one thing that was on. Oh yeah, another thing I wanted to bring up was that if you are in Washington State, or if you're able to vote by mail in general, one thing I'd recommend is mailing your ballot 10 days before the election date. The mail is still perfectly secure for mail in general. It's, we just have to be wary of, the people that Trump was putting in place, and the tax he's having on mail-in voting. And so you want to make sure you don't want to fully trust the postmark date to be able to have your ballot be counted. Usually it could be the case, that the day before or the day of, if you still have mail coming by to pick up your ballot, you could just mail it and it get counted. It would get counted later on when it came in. So it'd be like kind of delayed counting, but, be sure to mail your vote, mail your ballot 10 days before the election date, wherever you may be. If you're in Washington State, that's November 4th, which is obviously a Tuesday. So that means you'd want to mail it, by this Friday. And if you can, put it into some sort of, ballot box near you. So be sure to vote, as early as possible. Try and vote the day you get it. And there's one thing I want to talk about, on the ballot is statewide. Not fully give away where, obviously where I live is Washington State, but want to talk about this a little bit. And let's see, 1 second. Oh, hey Dickley, how's it going? Just talking about sad, frustrating politic things. So one thing I want to talk about that was on the ballot, was pretty much an amendment to allow. So Washington State for a few years now, I want to say like 4 years. We've had a long-term services and supports trust fund. And so that fund has actually been like, you've been kind of forced to invest in that. And this is related to how you're also kind of supposed to be investing in your own, either in your own long-term care program. So take care of yourself in your older age. If you need things like someone to come wipe you and stuff and bring you Meals on Wheels or whatever, you're supposed to have your own little, investment thing. So there's been kind of back and forth between whether that gets to be implemented or not. There's been some stalling in things. And so, most people that bought their own private plan and then they probably still have it. So it's like now just kind of, you accidentally gotten into a forced savings plan and now you're not really doing anything with it. Because if you didn't invest in that, you had to do the state-sponsored one. Again, one of the insane, capitalistic liberal things of having a public option, but trying to make you go push you to private to take more profits from you and all the things. So it's again just a worthless capitalist thing. But one thing that's happening here is what the amendment wants to do is take those funds that are chilling there, They're just sitting in fixed income securities and bonds. So treasury bonds, which make, a few percentage, points per year, just a little bit over inflation, pretty much, or certificates of deposit. And so what it's hoping for is to be able to use those funds to invest in stocks and other equities. And what you immediately hear is, okay, a government fund, like pension fund for like teachers or whatever, you're hearing the same things or you're probably thinking the same feelings of how a bunch of these government pension funds lost money in the 2008 financial crisis because they invested in crazy things and they lost a bunch of money. So that's obviously could still happen. And so the other thing that's one thing that's still going to happen, that still could happen. But the other thing I wanted to talk about on this is if this goes through, it starts to continue, and there's obviously arguments that might be too far gone, but this would just be another tiny step of getting more blocks or like pillars that are holding up society are going to be built on top of stocks and private or public investments like that. And if more things are built upon the stock market number going up, so if number only go up can save society, it makes it so there'll be more advantageous policies down the road to make the stock market look, so S&P 500, whatever, you can just say the stock market, perform well. If more things that the government relies on for public utility, for public helpfulness, are built on the stock market, then they're going to make policies that make those numbers go up. Most people don't, the vast majority of people don't make up what goes into the stock market, what goes into the share price, what's even saved in real estate, or what's in, again, these stocks or whatever. Most of it is held by, very rich, very few, small percentage of people. So trying to have more of the public's self-interest be forced to be in the stock market doesn't help the public. It helps these other rich people get you to be bought into the system that they have built to have any sort of partially, slightly better future. Even though their future will go much better than yours, it's going to be, yours will still only slightly go up or get better at all because of the stock market increasing. Now, this has already happened with 401ks in 1980. There's, you can look through the history of even how it happened, but when the 401k Act, whatever you want to call it, was put into place, it was put into place in 1980. It's not a coincidence at all that it was the same year that Ronald Reagan became president. You can see a lot of things, every single line of good thing go down, bad thing go up. If any of those line graphs, they all start in 1980. Reagan's why. This 401k thing is another bit of it. It used to be, as I had already talked about with the AI and companies wanting you to pay to work for them to get experience. The 401k was a way to also to hand over the responsibility of a worker's future being from the company in which they work for, or which they're putting the hard work into, which they're giving their loyalty to and working for years and years and, working well and properly for their company, giving the future like retirement that you might want or need or have onto your own shoulders. And so the 401k, instead of having a pension, you would invest in a 401k. So again, take more money out of your paycheck already. And then what does a 401k go into? It goes into the stock market. So it makes the stock market go up. Now you would argue that pension plans were also invested in the stock market. That is true. However, the pension plans, you had a fixed amount that the company was responsible for giving you once you became retirement age. And they had to give that to you year over year. So the company had an incentive to, invest some of it to maybe still make some money on that end and use it towards, other productive means if the money's just chilling there. But they also had incentive to make sure that they didn't go, if they wanted to get their own profits, they had to make sure that the company didn't go under, which is make, better products, that they were more attached to the local communities because everyone there that worked in the local community would have a pension. And so if you, conducted yourself poorly, the whole community would go against you and either not buy your products, talk about you or just not support you or vote for things against you and things like that. So when you have a actual local connection, which is what the pension plans are part of, you wouldn't act so abrasively as politicians and companies and CEOs do now, who get to be more detached from the local communities in which they are in. And there's an Amazon thing about that I can talk about later that goes into that. But the disconnect, the 401k is just another disconnect of having the leaders, the so-called, and name only at least, leaders of companies from investing in the local communities, investing in the people that are actually building the products and keeping the company going and afloat. And so that's why I voted no on this, because I want to have as minimal amount of public investment things from being reliant on the stock market. In S&P 500 and SP 500 are just 7 companies, but from that number going up. If we want these things to be funded, they should be taxed. The corporations should be taxed. They should be taxed higher. They were taxed higher. Even in the 80s when Reagan was in office, as he slowly tried to dismantle that, it was even higher before that. All these things are just should be perfectly mandated tax on these companies. Shouldn't have to be reliant on, fake numbers, on, some fake valuation of only a few companies that have stifled competition for decades. So that's why I wanted to just bring this up, and all these things that the policy itself is reasonable of, well, we want to try and help people when they're older to have some sort of security. Not just in healthcare, but you're going to need a few things because maybe you can't take care of yourself as well as you used to. So that's all fine and reasonable, but it shouldn't be predicated on the thing that probably got you there. If you're probably your health is probably poor because you don't have healthcare to begin with, right? And you probably couldn't get that thing checked because you can't get time off, because to take time off, your boss wouldn't let you, so you couldn't go to the doctor even for your too high of a cost to even go see them for once, so you probably don't see them for years. And so the thing you didn't take care of, they're also putting that cost on you to take care of yourself for the thing you couldn't get taken care of earlier. So I'm saying no to any of these things, any of these public initiatives to try and get more public funds into the stock market. We already have too much of it in the stock market. So, but again, going back to what I was saying before, vote early, no matter when you get your ballot. If you have to vote in person, vote for people that will make it so you can do mail-in voting. And even then, mail in your ballot as quickly as you can when you get it, or take it to a ballot box. Search locally. I won't, post links or anything anywhere. This one doesn't look too sketchy of, me putting links anywhere, but just look it up. You should be able to find it. But yeah, but the one thing I mentioned I was going to talk about for Amazon is where was it? Amazon leaked document about AI, Co-Robot, something like that. Yeah, here you go. This might be it. So I was talking about before, and when I was talking about these investments and going from one second. Oh yeah, Dinkley. Yeah, sad, frustrating politics things. So basically all U.S. politics at the moment. Oh yeah, yep, pretty much. But with that, I'm trying to talk about things that go partially under the radar, even though there's so many headline bad things you can talk about and argue about. I'm just trying to talk about the things that you have, as much things, not only that, but things you have in action you can take right now on. And this voting thing that I'm showing here is one of them. You can stop the overinvestment, over shoving of money into a terrible, not even Band-Aid. I guess I would say some dirt in the wound, so at least the wound isn't bleeding, but you're still going to get infected. So, so trying to talk about broad things, but then also local things, and trying to do an accordion of news, I guess, if that's not even an analogy anyone says, but I'm going to say it. But yeah, so I was talking about with this 401k thing and people not investing in companies not having pensions as much anymore. You hear about pensions going, dwindling, the number of people that even have access to a pension dwindling every year. It's partly why they're trying to get rid of more teachers, not only to make people dumber, so you can't say anything against the people that are supposed to be working for you. They want to lead over you instead. But also get rid of teachers. It reduces how much you have to pay in a pension plan, and they can, just take more profits, or they can shove you into a 401k or whatnot and take your money. And that also goes into, which I'm not going to talk about right now, but them trying to allow your 401k plan to be invested in private credit, which has no reporting requirements at all. So you're just going to be giving, if you have to keep an eye on your 401k plan too now, because like they'll probably put your money in, high risk, high reward, but most likely high risk, and you lose money. Most private credit is going under right now at the moment, and due to that, they're looking for funds. What is this funds that they haven't access to ever? The 401k stuff. So they're trying to take your money again. So anyway, moving on back to this, and this is Amazon talking about, okay, leaked Amazon plan says robots will help it avoid hiring 600,000 workers. In this article, I think they were talking about how to talk about it with people. I feel like local and regional, state level activism and politics is a lot more feasible to get stuff done with than central government and federal level politics. Yeah, that's true. I tell everybody to get involved locally. Like if anybody's chirping online or screaming in text in group chats and whatnot, it's entirely easy to go and get involved locally. You can go, you can go spit in the face of your, I don't say to do this, but your city council member and your county council members, or even your state legislators, your state senators, your state house and whatnot, are so accessible. I think with like how much it's been this way for a while, but how much politics has become sort of like more of like an entertainment thing. Obviously, with the rise of like different political podcasts and stuff like I listen to, I know there's none of these people aren't like untouchable. You can go talk to them, you can speak to them, you can find where they're going to have a town hall, or you can go just like the regular meetings that they have, and you can voice your concerns directly to them. You can show up to canvas for politicians that you like. You can canvas for specific initiatives. These things, if you start locally and work your way out, there are so little people that are showing up to those things. Like the No Kings protest was good. That's just one step and a big thing. Protesting it's always worth it. And no matter what anybody says, it's like the first step of you saying, I need to tell this, I'm going to go and be out there in public and protest. You can post online too, whatever you have, but protest in person. But then also have like a small action after that, like show up to whatever meetings there might be that they're all posted online. Hopefully they're hosting them. If they're not, you can find opposition politicians that will have their own like town halls or whatever, and you can go to those and say, well, my elected one isn't having it. There's always going to be someone that wants to have their seat, even if it's in the same party or whatnot or something. There's always going to be someone vying for that seat. So show up to their talks at the local gymnasium or something. But anyway, what I wanted to say with this though was, in talking about companies having a connection or responsibility to local communities, is this part here. So Amazon is also reportedly preparing for potential fallout from its plans to not hire 600,000 new workers. They want to replace with robots and AI. So according to documents viewed by the New York Times, Amazon has considered working on its image by taking part in community events such as parades and toy drives. It also contemplated avoiding terms like automation and AI, instead using phrases like advanced technology and cobot. So what you're seeing here is Amazon trying to do the things that they should have been doing this whole time. Firstly, that is getting involved in the local community. They say all these different ads and stuff that I get here in Washington State of they did this for this community, built this, whatever, blah, 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 blah. All these things are band-aids, and it's still the case that they made more money than if they were taxed properly and had like proper housing, for example. They always complain. There's a lot of complaints of like what they did to downtown Seattle, and so they are trying to say, oh, we're helping to build these different apartment complexes with this amount of affordable housing or multifamily tax exempt housing and whatnot, or putting on like these little like they just said, like parades or toy drives, or like, again, all these are little tiny little band-aids to try and make their image look better. They like, that's all they said is Amazon's considered working on its image. So it's working on its image. They don't even care, or I guess it's very obvious that they're not trying to help the community or invest in the community up until this of AI or robots. And so they're trying to do, in my opinion, kind of what this initiative is as well, where it was, this is a very terrible band-aid that our government's trying to do, invest your long-term service and support trust funds into the stock market. Insane. And they're trying to throw you a couple peanuts while they go and eat steak on the way. And that's what's a lot of these, and it's a lot of these policies that are being, that liberals have passed in the past decades, that Obama and all these people did, which was only to put band-aids as we went down, put band-aids on different things as like to slow your descent into a worse and worse life. They were trying to and so obviously with where the institutions are now, the Republicans are trying to just drop you and let you go and die on the floor, but liberals are trying to just slowly hold you as you lay down to die. That's what these are. That's what Amazon's trying to do. That's what this trust fund thing is trying to do. When the only things that actually help would be to raise the tax rate on corporations as it was, at least up until we can say the rate it was in 1980, fine, because it's a date we can all point to. Healthcare should be free for all, as it is in every single European country. And those would be just like the main things to start. And I would just start with free healthcare for everybody. Free healthcare for everyone. All these, we can argue about the validity of these workers, but people that get health insurance to the employer, they'd be free to go and move wherever they need to, and you'd have a better outcome on life no matter what. It's pretty obvious. And it would be cheaper for everyone. It'd be cheaper for the public. I don't care about what jobs that would be destroyed from it. The jobs you're talking about are just middlemen to take profits, to take money away from me getting better healthcare. And as the people are saying for other like software engineers, anybody to stop doing those jobs and go be nurses, then it's like, okay, well, the people that were working in the industry just to do the insurance part, they can go be nurses, whatever. You can have a government's job program to actually pass them through, because we already saw what happened with globalization. All those people that lost their jobs, we can see how they vote now and their anger and the correctly felt anger of their job being thrown around and they didn't have anything to fall back on. But yeah. And then Dinkley just said, it's very interesting to read about these different relatively successful socialist projects being done on the local level in capitalist countries. Yeah, there's always, there are, well, it'd be hard to say that any of these are socialist, like, yeah, like it's such a menial thing. And that's like, even this, like, let's help people have long-term health support through capitalism. Like, it's really funny. It's like, hey, this insane, like laws getting stripped away every 5 years. Capitalism sure didn't help everyone. So the problems that capitalism made can be saved by capitalism. Pretty insane. And even with that, if like you wanted to keep it for a second or whatever, there are laws that were already on the books that could have stopped a lot of these things from happening. There are antitrust laws. There's already email. There's written down not even written down testimony, just emails that like Mark Zuckerberg has sent, where he said where a CFO had asked him, why are you buying Instagram? And he's like, it's better to buy than to compete. That's obvious antitrust right there. You could have just used that one email and stopped him from buying Instagram, but then it consolidated. Obama let it go through, Obama's administration anyway. So anyway, capitalism got us here because we didn't enforce the laws that we could have and easily could have. But there's all, with it being a bunch of different states, not to say, obviously every other country has what you also might call states. Because of that, there's different programs that are going to be put in place. So there are, different states trying to do these things. So I don't fault the program being put in place, but then Washington State, while they're doing this, Washington State doesn't have an income tax. We just have a sales tax. And that's, for being a supposedly more liberal or progressive state, that's a pretty regressive tax. So just a sales tax means that you only pay tax on what you consume, right? And so everyone's going to kind of consume the same amount So that means that, a poorer person's paying the same tax as a richer person. If you eat the same thing every day, then you're paying the same tax, which is regressive. So yeah, there's a bunch of other things to argue there, but yeah, it's like there's way more to be done, but a lot of it's, happening more at the local level, in the, school boards and the city councils, and even at the ports, because the port, port commissioners, they have a lot of, especially if you're on a port, if you're near a port at all, they have a lot to say also. And just like the, one step of like unionization for the people that work on the docks. And, it's obviously a vital point of just like activity, for goods going around the world. So, a lot of those different things do matter. And it's how it bubbles up, because then those people have, more direct lines to your state senator or state, leaders. And then whatever they have, they'll bubble up to your district for, in the House of, Congress and in the Senate. So, anyway, wanted to complain about those few things, because all of it is like tiny little band-aids of people, I don't know, just being so, people complain about, most people in Congress, but people complain about people in Congress not being out of touch, and like, people seem to be saying that mostly about the Democrats, but it's like there's so many different little parts you have to watch of governments and corporations being out of touch with the local communities, or being purposefully out of touch. It's like there are different jobs in which like you do just one little point of it, and then someone else does a little point of it, and you never even get to talk to them or interact with them. And that's the point, right? It's like you divide and conquer, I guess, is kind of the thing you'd call it, but it's a little bit even more, I don't know what you'd even say I don't know how to describe it, but divide people up. They can't interact with each other, so you know exactly what they're building. But then also, if you're dividing people up and each person only does a little tiny thing, then whatever the result of that thing is, no individual person is liable. The company is liable. So no one goes to jail. The company might be, dissolved, but no individual person has to go to jail because their little thing that they did in isolation isn't illegal, but the culmination of the outcome is. And so having these large corporations in which people are so, divided from each other, it's another way for, capitalists to just absorb all the money. I'd also like to say, and the last thing I'd say on this was that if you're hearing this, or if you have a job every day, if you're going to school right now, or any of those things, you are not a capitalist, because if you were a capitalist, you would have capital. You wouldn't be working. You wouldn't be having to go to college. Maybe you go to college for fun if you're super rich already. But if you're in any of these things, if you have to go to the grocery store yourself or any of those things, you are not a capitalist. You are not. You can call yourself something else, but you're not a capitalist. You do not have capital. So quit calling yourself that. Don't lie to yourself. It's the last thing I'll say there. You are not a capitalist. All right. So that's enough of my ranting. This was kind of a duplicate thing because I talked about most of this stuff last week and my mic wasn't on. And since I'm a nobody on Twitch, no one told me that my mic was it was not on. And so until later on when I played Silent Hill F for a bit. But yeah, so that's all I'll say for these. So I'm going to take a break just for a second to get a bit of water, but then I am